Joe Lossett there. He's an off-camera feature match. And again, a lot of big-name players here in attendance. A lot of players overall here in attendance in Cincinnati. And what we found here in the Open Series, players love Modern.
Yes. I mean, our attendance numbers, our viewership numbers, the enthusiasm for the format, very, very high.
A chromatic star off of Urza's Tower is where Joe Lossett's going to start. And Joe, already off to a great start with that Urza's Land that's black-bordered. You have to appreciate that.
Of course.
Corsair crew fix, windswept heath on top of the deck.
They're really not that expensive.
No.
So there's no reason not to get it.
Now, what's going to be interesting here is the familiarity that Joe has with this deck, because Tron is kind of a weird deck in that it's just not like anything else that you get played. I mean, you're a deck that has 20 lands, 19 of which tap for mana. You're trying to assemble the Tron as quickly as possible and do something broken. So, you know, there's a lot of weird functionality that goes on with the deck. He's going to play a Sylvan Scrying right now. And he'll search up a Tron piece here, either Power Plant or Mine. Either one should be fine. And he'll get himself a Power Plant.
And something that I noticed when I was watching you play is the deck is redundant enough where you get in the spots where you say, well, I can try to get lucky here and try to assemble Tron by cycling some artifacts or what have you. Normally would be kind of a low value proposition play, but the deck is so redundant that you have a lot of draws to the missing Tron piece or one of your big plays or whatever when you get to these spots where you're trying to cycle and find what you're looking for.
It is appropriate to try to get lucky with this deck quite a bit.
Also, because the deck doesn't do anything, for the most part, until you have Tron assembled, you kind of have to go for broke making that a reality.
Now, Jeff's deck in this matchup, there is definitely some powerful things he can do. Of course, the Infinite combo with Geeky Jeek and Restoration Angel being one of them. He can blow up some lands of Fulminator Mage when we start working our way towards the sideboard games, and Chord of Calling can do some really busted stuff. But he can also just kind of draw the bad end of his deck. A card like Corsair Crew, for example, basically useless in the matchup.
Especially with Joe having access to 2 copies of Hoogland in the main deck.
Yep.
You know, if you're on Karn plus Wormcoil Engine as your only ways to win the game, some of these little value plays can help you endure against those cards, but Hoogland invalidates everything that Jeff produces unless he's going infinite.
Spellskite Scavenging Ooze in the hand here for Jeff. Also has a copy of Chord. He'll just play the 2-drops, pass the turn back.
And Lossett is likely threatening a turn 4 Hoogland here. If he has Tron assembled on 4, that's 8 mana.
That's exactly where you want to be, especially against Jeff's deck. Won't be able to kill Spellskite. Can kill everything else, though.
And you don't care about the Spellskite.
No, not too much.
You get to that later.
Yeah. It can be a touch annoying sometimes, but for the most part, you don't really care. Grow the Burn Willows is going to give Jeff a life. And now here's Sylvan Scrying. I think Jeff maybe was expecting Pyroclasm, but that is not what was being cast. Again, Joe with only one of those this weekend. And there's Urza's Mine. Tron will be complete next turn. Again, the deck is horribly redundant and assembling Tron. That part's not hard, but you have to have the combination of Tron and then the payoff card. And in some matchups, you have to have the right payoff card.
Exactly. You play some matchups, you know, you play against a combo deck, Wormcoil doesn't count. You play against Burn, often Karn doesn't count.
Yeah, horrible in that matchup.
But against Jeff, Hoogland definitely qualifies.
Wooded Foothills to draw. Chord of Calling, Path to Exile, the cards in Jeff's hand. So Jeff is sitting here hoping that the payoff card is Wormcoil Engine.
Yeah.
That's what his hope is, as he has an answer to it. Wooded Foothills will enter the battlefield. Corsair will trigger. Jeff will gain a life.
And Jeff must have some pretty specific plans this turn if he put the Wooded Foothills into play instead of playing the Thicket off the top of his deck. That Thicket would come into play tapped, so that indicates that Jeff has some pretty specific plans for the extra mana.
The Chord of Calling is the big one here for Jeff. What can he do with that card? And he's just going to pass the turn back. So if you're Joe, you're familiar, well, then you know that Chord of Calling is here. Maybe Restoration Angel, a card on your radar, but if it was Restoration Angel, he would have attacked with some things. So you can pretty safely put your opponent on Chord of Calling here. That said, I think that Joe's play is pretty straightforward, which is, I don't know, complete the Tron, play my Hoogland.
Yep.
If he has an O-Stone, that might be a safer route to go, but I don't think Joe has one of those in his hand. His hand looks pretty land heavy at this point. So here comes Hoogland.
You can see Lossett's hesitation here. Because Jeff didn't attack, he probably has Chord. doesn't know if this thing is good for sure. And Jeff might have some weird workaround, but I don't think Lossett's hand lets him do anything other than this. So he's just got to see what happens.
Now, from Joe, again, I think the only card on my radar here at this point is Court of Calling because he didn't attack. So now I think Joe's asking himself, okay, well, how much am I supposed to minus my Ugin for? Because I can just minus it for 2, but then he can court for something and have something left behind. So I actually kind of like courting here for 5. Yeah, my Ugin is going to really go down, and it could potentially be killed, but at the same time, what would Jeff have left behind post-court that I'd be scared about?
Exactly. And if you do it for something like 4 or 5, if the card in Jeff's hand happens to be Collected Company, you're also covered from whatever. I guess if you're playing around Court of Calling, you'd prefer to leave it higher because Jeff can simply court end of turn and maybe find some action.
Yeah.
But it's almost certainly Court of Calling in hand, not Collected Company, because Hoogland failed to attack last turn.
Yep. You can basically draw the conclusion that it is court, as you mentioned, just because there was no attack. So Joe is going to use Ugin for 4, not 5. So this actually gives Jeff the opportunity to sacrifice a fetch land, go get a Stomping Ground. And now what he can do is he can court for 5. He's got 4 creatures plus 4 mana. So that's 8 total. So he can court for 5 and get Kiki-Jiki here.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred a court here for 5 because, you know, Jeff played a Wooded Foothills out of his hand instead of playing a Thicket and a play untapped. That indicates he had something to do.
Yep.
And now, if he goes and gets Kiki-Jiki here, a couple bad things could potentially happen. One, he draws Restoration Angel and just kills you.
Yep.
And now also, you have an Ugin at 3 loyalty. Hoogland has a 2/2 in play. He has a Spellskite you can't get rid of. So he can actually start attacking Ugin.
Mm-hmm. So Ugin's going to exile Scavenging Ooze, Courser of Krufix, and a Birds of Paradise. Joe will get to see what Jeff draws because the shuffling takes place, so he'll get to see what the top card was. It's a copy of Pia and Kieran Nalaar, and that's bad news because now there goes the Ugin.
Oh, that's a very punishing card there.
Can't copy legendary creatures.
Oh.
Never mind.
But Restoration Angel still a kill here.
Correct. Now, Pia Kieran is the draw. But yeah, Kiki-Jiki, one thing it cannot copy is legendary creatures.
And Joe currently can't get Kiki-Jiki off the table because the lightning bolt effect that Ugin can produce, Hoogland can simply redirect over to the Spellskite.
Yep. Oddly enough, Ugin looking pretty poor right now. Even if he were to minus, you know, he can't minus to kill Thopters or Spellskite. So.
Although I guess it's the other scenario is if Hoogland goes and minuses 5 the Ugin, Hoogland can cord for Pia and Kieran Nalaar in response, which leaves 2 Thopters in play.
Yep.
The Thopters then attack down Ugin.
Sure.
So I think Jeff had it covered regardless.
Sure. The draw for Joe this turn was a copy of Wormcoil Engine. Now Joe with a lot of lands in hand, looks like a couple copies of Grove of the Burned Willows, and there's his tower. He's got that Wormcoil Engine over there.
But for the time being, Hoogland's pretty well set up to attack the Planeswalkers. He's going to be able to copy Pia and Kieran Nalaar at the minimum. That's going to bring some Thopters along.
No copying.
Oh, excuse me. Cannot copy. Okay, so Lossett is actually pretty covered then.
He can copy a Thopter token and then throw it. That's not bad.
I mean, Jeff doesn't have anything else to do with his mana at this point. He just has Path to Exile in hand.
Sylvan Scrying the draw here for Joe.
And Sylvan Scrying is not bad for Lossett in the spot because the game is sort of shaping up where Lossett can't really lock out Hoogland just yet, but he can make Hoogland spend a lot of mana and a lot of turns wearing down the Planeswalkers, and that might open up the door for Eye of Ugin into Emrakul being the way that Lossett locks this one up.
Yeah, if he has enough time for that, that's going to be the big question.
He's going to have a fair bit of time. The game is shaping up where it's going to take Hoogland a while. Lossett's at 18. We're not going to be attacking there for a while. Hoogland's got to spend some time and effort wearing down the Planeswalkers, assuming Lossett's playing Karn this turn. You know, you plus the Ugin and get Kiki-Jiki off the table potentially.
Yeah, I guess what's the order of operations here that Joe wants to take? Joe is going to plus Ugin and go after Kiki-Jiki, but I actually like leading out with Karn first here. I like playing Karn first, get Spellskite off the battlefield, then plus my Ugin, get Kiki-Jiki off the battlefield, and now it's my Planeswalkers versus Pia and Kieran.
Yeah. With Ugin having a fair bit of loyalty to work with.
It'll be up to 5 then.
Yeah, but first order of business has to get Spellskite off the table.
But now there's also, you've also got the issue here of you're not going to be able to truly get it off the battlefield because you minus Karn. He copies Spellskite now, redirects it to the copy. So in this weird way, Jeff has these Planeswalkers sort of covered.
So I guess Lossett needs to consider just plussing the Karn and plussing the Ugin and just making Hoogland spend turns wearing them down.
Yeah. So Ugin's going to go after Kiki-Jiki. Jeff will copy. And then I will see him pay the 2 to redirect it over to the copied Spellskite. Now Joe is going to tick up his Karn.
And he can't make any inroads on the board at this point for the same reason, because the Spellskite is still available. So, yeah, he just needs to plus here.
And lastly, he can play Sylvan Scrying. Give Jeff a life, of course, from the Grove of the Burn Willows. And go search up Eye of Ugin or another Tron piece. Those are the best options here for Joe. Ghost Quarter does not work its way into the equation here.
And the game is being played at such a pace right now that Eye of Ugin getting Emrakul or Eye of Ugin just chaining together some Worm Coil engines could be a line to play. Hoogland's hands are probably going to be tied for a while now, wearing down these Planeswalkers, unless he draws some way to just win the game on the spot.
Well, one thing you'll note about Joe's mana right now, you see Jeff kind of assessing the board. He drew a fetch land for the turn. Right now he's got 2 towers, that's 6 mana, 2 other Tron pieces, that's 10. Grove of the Burn Willows is 11. He just got Eye of Ugin, so that's lands number 12 and 13 if we're doing just an Emrakul count.
So any Tron piece is good to go.
So what this basically means, as Jeff drew a land for this turn, is he gets one more draw step before Emrakul shows up. And in the meantime, you know that his attention, is going to be diverted on, I got to get these Karns and Ugins off the battlefield because those cards are incredibly powerful. So what Joe has looming is an Emrakul on the, not next turn, but the following turn. So 2 turns from now, which means Jeff Hoogland gets what might just be one more draw step this game.
And on top of that, Jeff certainly has to do something about Ugin because Ugin's threatening to minus next turn and clear out the board. And at that point, Jeff doesn't have nearly the clock to kill Lossett in time, nor does he have any hope of drawing Restoration Angel or some other copying effect to go infinite with Kiki-Jiki or something else.
Ugin moving down to 1. Hoogland will pass the turn back. Joe will draw a copy of Worm Coil Engine. And now if you're Joe, maybe Worm Coil Engine works its way into the equation, maybe not. I don't think it's a huge helper here.
I'm just sort of looking to get to Emrakul, I think. Because Hoogland's deck can always just kill by going infinite in this spot. So getting some life and blocking, if Hoogland just kind of draws random value creatures, that could be good, but there's no guarantee that happens.
Ugin going up. We saw this interaction last turn.
Yep.
So Spellskite will redirect. Now, as far as Jeff's draws and what are the best ones that he has available, Quarter Calling, game over.
Restoration Angel,
game over.
Yep.
Does Eternal Witness work itself into the equation? That's 3 mana. You get back a Cord. Actually, his graveyard's gone, so never mind. Relic of Progenitors took care of that. Here's a Worm Coil Engine. Now, part of the reason I think we see Joe casting this here, and he can actually, I don't think he has another one in his hand, but I think part of the reason we see him playing that is because maybe he could play another one now. But the most important reason is he's going to play another Worm Coil Engine is he doesn't have the Tron piece in his hand.
There's no guarantee.
So there's no guarantee that, I search up Emrakul, I play a Tron land, I Emrakul you. There's no guarantee of that happening. There's a Wooded Foothills. Also, the other thing that Joe is threatening right now, and we don't see this very often, but we could see a restart with Karn.
Yeah, Hoogland has this covered here. He can use his flyers, chop them up here. One takes care of Ugin, one takes care of Karn. He's still 2 turns away from being able to set that up.
We got one going to Ugin, it appears. And then one going to go down to Karn to knock Karn out from going ultimate.
Yeah, there is no value in getting Joe from 18 to 17 when he has 2 Worm Coils in play.
Not much.
Hoogland just has to manage the Planeswalkers for now.
Joe's draw for the turn, the Forest. Sticks out like a sore thumb.
Another option here for Lossett is, I guess now it's off the table with Hoogland having drawn Wooded Foothills, but the previous turn he did have the option of ghost quartering the plains, hoping that's the only plains in Hoogland's deck, and then Restoration Angels off the table. But now with Wooded Foothills, Hoogland probably has some Temple Garden or Sacred Foundry to go get. You can't cut him off Restoration Angel at this point.
Wurmcoil Engines will come across. And for Joe, you maybe try to figure out how you want to use Karn here. Again, Karn's minus is being brickwalled by Spell Sky plus Kiki Jiki, so that's not an option. And the plus ability is kind of whatever. So, you know, maybe you target yourself with the plus ability because you can do that in case you get to restart territory. But the minusing effect is just never really going to do, I think, what Joe wants it to do.
What I don't mind about this play from Lossett's side is Hoogland's at 4, now going to 2. Which means that next turn, unless he has a way to generate blue mana somehow, he can no longer redirect with Spellskite.
Sure.
So, if at this point going up with Karn does not seem to be too relevant to me when Lossett is playing towards Emrakul anyway. So he might as well give himself a shot next turn of being able to remove the Spellskite from the table and then doing something else.
Well, Jeff is down to 2. He's going to go down to 1, and he's going to hope to peel some way to get Restoration Angel on the battlefield, as that's his way to win immediately. There's a Temple Garden. And now it's time for a big top deck.
And Lossett can't use the Ghost Quarter here speculatively. Hoogland now with another Plains, another land in play, and Lossett also needs to get to 15 mana next turn to be able to cast Emrakul.
That is a forest. That is not going to get the job done, as Emrakul will be on the way. So Joe Lossett is going to win game number 1 here over Jeff Hoogland. Green Red Tron up a game here over Kiki Cord, and that means we're going to turn our attention to the sideboard. We know Jeff's got a little bit of hate in here, but it doesn't appear to be a ton. He's got an Obstinate Baloth and a Uruk Champion, 2 warships, 3 Stony Silence, a Fulminator Mage, a Quasali Pride Mage, a Celestial Purge, 2 Engineer Explosives, 2 Sin Collectors, and an Eidolon of Rhetoric.
I can get behind the Stony Silences for sure. Tron's got all sorts of artifacts with activated powers, so that's fine. The 1 copy of Fulminator Mage, very powerful to draw, very powerful to cord for. That'll come in as well. I think that Sin Collector on the play is not necessarily off the table, but I don't see too much of high-impact sideboard cards here besides the Stony Silences, the Fulminator Mage, and the Quasali Pride Mage probably will come in as well. Tron's got a lot of artifacts to go attack.
Yeah, all those cards are great options. Stony Silence can be a real pain, so if I'm Joe in this matchup, it's actually kind of tough because I imagine he has Nature's Claim in his sideboard, and I don't know if he's going to board those in or not.
Well, he's got 2 copies of the Rag Test, 2 copies of Spellskite, a Relic of Progenitus, 2 copies of Crucible of Worlds, 3 Nature's Claim, 3 Rending Volley, a Fire Spout, and a Ghost Quarter. I really like bringing in the additional copy of Fire Spout. I like the additional copy of Relic of Progenitus as well. Hoogland's probably got plenty of stuff going on with his graveyard here. I don't know if he's going to want to bring in the extra Ghost Quarter. To me, that feels like specifically against anti-Tron decks or matchups where you're bringing in the Crucible as well, and probably not for this matchup, even though Hoogland's mana base is stretched a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Jeff has enough basics to be able to function past Ghost Quarter.
Yeah, and I think the Nature's Claims could come in. I could see, 1 or 2 kind of coming in speculatively, but Hoogland's deck did not look like it had all that much stuff to be targeting with Nature's Claims, but I'm sure if Hoogland plays Stony Silence and wins game 2, we're going to see him for game 3.
They're all coming in.
Yeah.
If I'm Joe in this situation and I had Jeff's deck list, I'd be boarding in all 3 of my Nature's Claims to take care of Stony Silence.
It's a very easy way for Hoogland to steal a game here, and it shuts off one of Lossett's best tools for the matchup, which is Oblivion Stone. Yep. Hoogland's trying to build up a pretty big board here, and so O-Stone is great, shutting that off. Very powerful for Jeff.
These players will shuffle up here for game number 2. We did mention that both these players did play in the Players' Championship last year. They're both looking to get back. Joe Lossett, very good opportunity to do so, especially if he has a good tournament here with Green Red Tron. We'll talk about the players who already qualified for the Players' Championship. Season 1, I remember pretty well Jacob Wilson beating Reed Duke in the finals.
Yeah, and Jim Davis had the lead with points for the majority of the season, had some good Open Series performances, and was able to lock up Season 1 on points.
For Season number 2, we had Ali Antrazi get the job done with Green Red Tron over his good friend Chris Van Meter in the finals there at the Origins Game Convention. And then Kevin Jones, the Jeskai Master, he's headed back as well.
Yeah, Kevin Jones, I believe, is actually still in first place on the Open Series point board. He's definitely a grinder, a lot of good Open Series results, a lot of good IQ results, and had a commanding lead throughout the entirety of Season 2.
And of course, Season 3 last weekend, Alex Bostecki being down 2 games to Stephen Mann, so he's 0-2 in a best of 5, mulliganing to 6, regains his composure, finds a way, does win our New Jersey Open, and then Danny Jessup, Well, he crawled across the finish line, but he got there.
Yeah, he was sick and had to sweat it out there in day 2 as multiple people who could have run him down were competing in the second day. All those players had bad performances during the legacy portion of day 2. Jessup blocked at the point invite, and Alex Pisecki, one of the best comebacks I can remember all seeing, down 0-2, I believe only kept a 7-card hand once in a 5-game set against one of the Open Series best players in Stephen Mann, but was able to rally back and win the Invitational.
All 6 of those players are headed to Roanoke at the end of the year, and so is the defending champion, Brad Nelson, December 19th and the 20th. 16 competitors, $50,000, StarCityGames.com, Players Championship. Really looking forward to that as we got to punch more tickets to that tournament, and maybe when we do look back at the players that do qualify, this match between Jeff Hoogland and Joe Lossett could have a real impact on things.
Yeah, both these players trying to lock up their invites. It's going to be, a grind on points. Joe, right now, if things were to stop, would be in the Players Championship. Jeff would be on the outside looking in. A lot of time for both these players. A lot of time for a lot of movement on the point standings.
Yep.
And it's going to be a really good race to find out who those 7 at-large invites are going to be.
Both these players will take a look at their opening hand. Hoogland will be on the play with his Kiki core deck. Again, it's all about Kiki, Jiki plus Restoration Angel for him. There are other ways to interact, like the Fulminator Mage in his sideboard that he can court a calling for. But the infinite combo, which he could have drawn to multiple times that game, if he finds a Restoration Angel, would have been lights out. Wasn't able to find it, though, as we're underway here for game number 2. Jeff will start off with the Wooded Foothills.
The one Fulminator Mage only does so much work against Tron.
Yeah.
If you're not backing it with pressure. And a lot of the synergies that Hoogland has do not manifest with Fulminator Mage. You can't copy Fulminator Mage or blank it out with things like Restoration Angel and Kiki Jiki. That doesn't work because it's sacrifice. Only Eternal Witness gives him some sort of synergy there. And in that case, Lossett could just shut it down with Relic of Progenitus. I wonder, if, given the nature of Hoogland's list, if he's actually better served with something like Avalanche Riders in that spot, or maybe a 1-1 if he could split, if he could find room in the sideboard. I understand you want the immediacy of Fulminator Mage. Some of those matchups are very, very fast where you need to be blowing up lands, but Avalanche Rider gives him a lot of ways to combo.
Yeah, Avalanche Riders is actually pretty nice, with Restoration Angel, with Kiki Jiki, all that jazz. Getting it back with Eternal Witness, of course, but that works with all of the cards. Riders we have seen in Kiki core decks before, especially when they have Birthing Pod to move up the chain, but Birthing Pod, as we know, no longer with us. Razorverge Thicket into Voice of Resurgence here for Jeff. You saw Lossett start off with a copy of Expedition Map, Urza's Tower, the draw. So Tron can be online very, very quickly here. Now, one thing you want to do if you're Joe in situations like this, you don't want to get too cute with your Expedition Map. I like sacrificing on my own turn, because if he gets mind censored here, it's not good. You want to try to avoid that if ever possible. Now, fortunately, Jeff is going to tap out here for a Fulminator Mage, so this is the flip side of things, but you were going to search for a Tron Priest likely anyway, so I like getting it out of the way just in case Mind Censor works its way into the equation.
Yeah, these decks, especially ones with Court of Calling, one Mind Censor is pretty common.
Yeah. Fulminator Mage is going to go after a land, likely the Tower. Joe will sacrifice his Expedition Map.
Now, if you're naturally going to draw your anti-land measure, much better to be Fulminator Mage, because Avalanche Rider could possibly just be too slow for this kind of game. So, not saying Avalanche Rider is strictly better by any means, just curious if maybe Jeff could find room for one of it throughout the 75 because it combos so nicely with some of his other pieces.
Yep. Looks like Urza's Mine is the weapon that Joe will be searching for. So just one piece away. Joe will take a draw step. Remember, assembling Tron, the deck is very redundant, so it's not that hard for it to do.
Yeah, this is a very good start for Hoogland. Of course, he has a threat in play. He's kept Joe off Tron, which he was threatening to do this turn. But unless Hoogland's threatening to combo or backing up with a lot of pressure, it's normally just going to be a matter of time before Lossett has this set back up.
Yep. You see he's got an Expedition Map in hand. It might be what he's considering casting. And I believe he's got a Tron piece in the middle of his hand. I think he might be sandbagging a tower here. He's going to play a copy of Chromatic Sphere and pass the turn back. And what's kind of nice about this is if you're Joe and you have the tower in your hand, and you play the map, Jeff might be thinking, okay, I got to get that map off the battlefield, when in reality, that's not actually what matters at all.
And that was a huge draw there for Jeff, digging desperately for Stony Silence, and I think he just found it.
Yep, and I think he's got the land to play it as well. So there is Stony Silence. That'll shut down the sphere and the map.
Now, this is all for naught if Lossett can just naturally get to Ugin.
Yeah. But you can see in his hand that actually that Tron land was a copy of versus Power Plant, not the tower.
Lossett just with all the mismatched Tron pieces here.
Oh, he can't get it by me.
Being as griefy as possible.
Oblivion Stone? Oh, it's going to be a Crucible of Worlds. Okay, well, this is a way to get around land destruction.
Combo!
Yep. Tower in the graveyard, good place to be right now.
It's not really a combo, it's just what the card does. It's just a nice card. It's just a nice card to have right now.
Card working as designed.
Right, there's a land in the graveyard. It's powerful. He gets it back.
But what you can see here, really, as we're watching this game unfold, of course, if Krufix comes down, Jeff's going to gain a life. You see his hand, Sacred Foundry, Wall of Roots.
It's just all of Hoogland's stinkers for this matchup.
But he has a lot of stinkers.
He has a lot of stinkers. Yeah, you're noticing that too? I also noticed it.
Yeah. A lot of stinkers in this matchup. And you can't say he didn't draw sideboard cards. He's drawn a Fulminator Mage and a Stony Silence.
And Stony Silence has been quite good. I mean, if Lossett had access to his Expedition map and his Sphere at this point, the game could already be over.
Yep.
But Hoogland's just not backing this up with enough pressure.
Tower's going to enter the battlefield, so Tron's online. Access to 9 mana, but Joe has nothing to do with it. Jeff, another Stony Silence on top of the deck. Courser the draw. Here come the beatdowns. Lossett will take 4. He's going to move down to 10.
And Lossett's hand, it's a bunch of colored spells, no colored mana in play. Can't access it because of Stony Silence.
Yep.
So right now he's looking for one of his big plays. Hoogland especially.
Hoogland would be wonderful right now if you're Joe Lossett. He'll draw a card. Grover the Burn Willows just fine as well.
Yeah, that turns on the Ancient Stirrings in hand, and once you have green and red mana, you get to see the redundancy of Tron at work. There's a lot of redraws to your critical pieces.
Here is Ancient Stirring. So we'll take a look at the top 5 cards. Gets to take a colorless card among them. So a land, an Hoogland, a Karn, a Wormcoil Engine, an artifact. A lot of options. Stirrings rarely misses, if ever. I've missed once in, 700 years of playing Tron. I still have the photo on my computer.
Yep.
I was beside myself.
3 Stirrings and 2 Pyroclasms.
It was 4 Clasms and a Stirrings.
Yeah. Hard for the card to miss.
Wormcoil Engine here among the options for Joe.
Now, this is a spot where Wormcoil Engine looks fine. It is better than Hoogland's board right now. The problem is that Hoogland could easily have Path.
Yeah.
So it's possible that all Lossett's trying to do here is just play towards Hoogland. So if he has some other way to search, some other way to draw cards, he might value that higher than Wormcoil.
Looks like Wormcoil was the best of the bunch. So Stirrings is done resolving. And now Joe will play the Wormcoil Engine. You see in Joe's hand, he does have some red cards. There's a Rending Volley in hand. That can take care of Restoration Angel when the combo does come up. Jeff will play Razorverse Thicket off the top of his deck. 2 triggers from Courser, so 2 life will be gained. Voice of Resurgence on top of the deck now. And Jeff, well, he's not attacking in a Wormcoil Engine, so Joe will draw. Chromatic Sphere is what he's found. A useless card since Stony Silence is on the battlefield. Ghost Quarter is the land.
I will say this about Hoogland's board. It is pretty fire spout proof.
Yeah, somehow it is. Somehow it is. Joe does have that card in his hand.
Doesn't do anything except upgrade the voice.
Yeah, actually doesn't kill anything else. It's embarrassing.
I think Lossett just needs to hang tight for now. There's not a lot to be gained here by making any attacks.
Yep. Scavenging Ooze on top of the deck now.
Hoogland's not in a position to really do anything, and you're working with perfect information for the rest of the game. Lossett also has a Rending Volley in his hand, so if Restoration shows up and there's some sort of combo, you can break that up easily.
Yep.
And Lossett is always drawing to Hoogland and possibly Karn to just end the game on the spot.
Voice of Resurgence, Stony Silence number 2. That's Hoogland's turn. Last card in his hand is a Wall of Roots. See, Joe's going to take a little trip to Value Town now. Going to Ghost Quarter himself, get a forest out of his deck, and since he's got Crucible, it's basically free.
Nice.
Yeah. A little value action here from Joe.
I don't know if that's better than shuffling 4 non-Hoogland cards back into your deck, but whatever.
Take a draw. Picked up a Karn Liberated. See, it's because he thinned his deck out. That's why he drew the
Well,
Karn.
he didn't really thin it out, right?
How didn't he?
Because there was a stirrings involved from before.
Oh, so I guess he shuffles those cards back.
He just
in.
shuffles in cards he doesn't want.
But he got a land out of his deck, so it's thinner by a card.
That's not how that works exactly. That's
Okay.
Don't worry. We'll
Okay, all right.
talk about it off the air.
But there's one less card.
There is one less card.
Maybe you understand. There's one less card in his deck.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't get it. Therefore, it's thinner.
I think that Lossett, the motivation for making that play is that he wants the ability to go upstairs and downstairs with Fire Spout. And he needs to have Grove plus Forest to be able to do that.
That's fine.
I don't think it has anything to do with deck thinning, though drawing the Karn here, you know, he got paid off or whatever you
He
want to
sure did. He sure did. Plus, hey, we've seen Joe get a little fancy sometimes. Caracas Inventor, bounce my top with the draw on the stack. We've seen him get a little fancy. Karn is here. It looks like the elevator might be going up.
Well, Lossett's 2 paths here, in my opinion. He can just go minus, get the Stony Silences off the table and try to go crazy. Or he can plus Karn, assume that Jeff can't really attack productively into the Karn, and eventually go ultimate or wear him out of resources that way.
Scavenging Ooze the draw. Wooded Foothills coming on in. Spellskite is next for Hoogland, assuming he wants to draw that card because he can't sacrifice the fetch land. Here's your Ooze. Ooze is going to take care of Ghost Quarter right now, so he can't get it back with Crucible. So Ghost Quarter's gone forever. And Jeff appears to be passing the turn back. Again, no real good attacks to be had here.
The problem is that to make these attacks productive, he kind of has to get one of the Voice of Resurgences to die. And if he's only attacking with 2 copies of Voice of Resurgence, Lossett can just ignore that. And if he's attacking with more than that, then Lossett's just going to block a Courser or a Scavenging Ooze or whatever. So it's very hard for Hoogland to make much progress here by Alpha Strikes. And so he just kind of has to wait. Fortunately for him, the waiting game is not very good because Lossett has Karn in play.
Yeah.
Hard to outweight that one.
Karn moving up again. Joe's going to target himself. Expedition Map is the weapon of choice. So if Joe does go to restart mode, he gets to restart with an Expedition Map.
Sure.
And a Wall of Roots.
It's a lot to work with.
It is. Jeff's going to sacrifice the fetch land. He'll lose a life, gain 2 life because the Coursers are on the battlefield, so long as he doesn't remember both triggers. Stomping Ground is the weapon of choice. And then we'll see his top card here from Courser in just a moment. There are some good draws available here for Hoogland. And the top card is a Court of Calling, maybe his best draw. Now, what can that get? Well, there's another Court of Calling, so we're going to find out soon enough.
Well, you can get literally anything in Hoogland's deck.
Yep. He has all the mana he could possibly ask for.
He probably has enough mana where it's basically free for him to get an Eternal Witness if he wanted to.
Start chaining up that way a little bit.
It's a complicated draw step. Definitely the best one that Hoogland has, though.
For sure. Looks like maybe Voice of Resurgence will be coming on in.
Well, Hoogland has to make some effort here to get Karn to go down below 14.
Yeah, it might actually be attractive for Joe to do a restart now.
Yeah. If all Hoogland does, though, is offer up the Voice of Resurgence, at that point, Lossett can simply Fire Spout, fend them off, and reset the game. At that point, I suppose Hoogland has to chord for something like Pia and Kira Noir to be able to get Karn to go below 14 loyalty.
Well, here come the voices at Karn.
Remember, Lossett's working with perfect information, too. He knows Hoogland's out of cards. He sees his draw step. He knows it's chord. Lossett's also got this weird incentive where he kind of wants to make it attractive enough for Hoogland to chord right now, because he doesn't want Hoogland to draw a chord next turn. It's the best draw step in Hoogland's deck still.
Voice Research is going to die. Elemental Token on the way, so long as Jeff does remember. For Joe, he's going to gain 6 life because Wormcoil Engine did block, so he'll be moving up to 16. Elemental Token pretty large. 6/6 at this point. Lossett will draw. He's still on the hunt for Hoogland. That's a game ender. Or at least pretty gosh darn close to it. He may have picked up another copy of Karn here.
Was Oblivion Stone. Oblivion Stone is also potentially an incentive for Lossett to pivot, start getting the Stony Silences off the table, because Oblivion Stone is likely a game winner here as well.
Yep. He's had that in his hand for a couple of turns, but no real use for the card just yet.
The problem was before, it looked like Hoogland was kind of sputtering a little bit. It would take him a lot of resources to attack down Karn, and resetting the game or forcing Hoogland to make all these bad alpha strikes, that was on the table. Now, with Court of Calling being the draw step, Jeff may have the resources to beat the Karn, and Lossett may need to unlock some of the other cards in his hand.
Yeah, I could definitely see wanting to go down here. You take care of one Stony Silence. Then you play the other card, you take care of the other one, and then most of your hand and your deck is unlocked. So it looks like that's where Joe is going to start heading. He'll start by moving down Karn, exile Stony Silence. Don't know if he wants to play the other one just yet, though.
And Karn's still got 8 loyalty. It's not going to be trivial for Joe to attack and get Karn down low enough next turn where Lossett can't untap and cast, minus the Karn rather, and take care of the Stony Silence.
Yeah.
It's going to require a lot of resources.
Jeff will cast Court of Calling. It looks like it's going to be for 3.
It's for 3. I imagine this is just a value chord for Eternal Witness.
Well, he's got big plans here. So it looks like now he's going to get Kiki Jiki. So what he can do now is he gets Kiki. Yeah, he actually just has a kill. So now he copies that, gets back Cord, and then Cord gets Restoration Angel, and he actually just kill him.
Well, remember that Lossett is still sitting on Rending Volley.
Very true.
And Lossett's going to make him play it out.
Yeah, as he should. That'll be the draw. Now the Cord should be in Jeff's hand, so long as he didn't... Well, I guess no, never mind. Now he copies there, gets this. And actually, this, oddly enough, this actually plays to Joe's advantage quite a bit. Because Jeff is going through this process so quickly, he's not thinking about what can go wrong. So a card like, he doesn't have Rending Volley or Combust on the mind at all. It looks like he's slowing down a little bit.
And the thing is that the issue is now forced, because this enters play and Hoogland just has to trigger the Restoration Angel. There's no waiting game here.
So Joe has to be very careful with how he does this. So, okay. So you let that happen. Joe, I think he's done everything correct so far. And now he attempts to copy. And there's nothing to copy because you Rending Volley it.
Yeah.
And now Jeff has slowed down a little bit because Joe is making him play out. And so perhaps you have something, which Joe does. So he's going to attempt to copy, and Joe's going to play Rending Volley. Or Rending Volley, excuse me.
Yep.
Jeff will get an Elemental Token from Voice of Resurgence. That's going to die. It is interesting to note that Jeff actually could set up a kill from that position, though.
Yeah, it required a very low base.
Yeah, just a Court of Calling in that spot could get him to a kill.
I mean, we've seen some of those shenanigans before with Birthing Pod decks. It's just been a bit.
Now Jeff's coming into the red zone. He's got to get Karn off the battlefield. He realizes that Joe will get the block with Wormcoil Engine. He's going to gain 6 life here. Karn is going to lose quite a bit of loyalty. It might just die here.
I mean, it's possible if Lossett is still on Fire Spout in hand, that he may say, you know, he may be in the position where he's just trying to wear down the 4 toughest creatures. I guess this path allows him to get all the voice tokens off the table as well next turn. No, actually it doesn't, because
those voice tokens are big.
And the 2 copies of Courser and the Wall of Omens will survive.
Yeah. Let's see what Joe's draw is. Another Crucible. Not terribly helpful.
But with another card in hand, now he has the ability to get the Stony Silence off the table. I'm sure that Lossett would like to do everything in one turn. He doesn't want to chain this together.
Yeah, so Joe actually on this turn, he can blow up the entire board. So what he can do is he can play Karn, minus kill Stony Silence, crack map, get a tower, you're +1 mana there, and then you're able to blow up O-Stone. Because right now he has 7, 8, 9, 10 mana. So if he wanted to go that route, he could. If he's just going to cast Fire Spout right now, and Fire Spout is going to take care of Kiki Jiki. It'll take care of Eternal Witness. But Scavenging Goose is going to pump itself. There are some cards to eat in Jeff's graveyard. But getting Kiki Jiki Eternal Witness off the battlefield, pretty important, especially because Joe knows what Jeff is drawing. And he knows there are blanks. There's a forest on top of his deck. That doesn't matter very much. Those elemental tokens, sure, they're big.
Joe still has a ton of light to play with because he picks up 6 in any combat that involves the Wormcoil engine.
So here's Karn. Looks like he might be taking care of an elemental token.
I think he's just counting to make sure he's not dead.
Sure.
And there's 7.
He can put himself at a virtual 28 right now.
He blocks 7. That's 14, 18, 22.
Yeah.
On the table, so this is safe. Assuming he's blocking an elemental.
He knows Jeff's hand as well as the top card of the deck, too.
Yeah.
There's a land in Jeff's hand, there's a land on top of his deck. Getting Stony Silence off the battlefield, pretty important. Gonna cash in the Sphere, draw a card, Ancient Stirrings, which he can cast now. So we'll take a look at the top 5 cards. Emerald Cruel among them. He's looking at a lot of cards there.
Yep. That was
like 8.
Yeah, that was not even close to 5.
Close.
That was past 5.
Yeah.
And then some.
Yeah, he looked at way too many there.
Yeah, that was like an opening hand style.
He wanted a new hand. When you're playing a game, don't you want a new hand sometimes? Yeah.
I wouldn't mind it, but that's just not what that card does.
Sometimes I want a new hand.
Yep.
Sometimes everybody wants a new hand. We're going to get a judge ruling, obviously, and we'll let you guys know what the ruling is there. It looks like Joe has finally kind of turned the corner here. Rending Volley timely from when Jeff was trying to kill him there to take care of the Restoration Angel. And now he's got a Karn. Both the Stony Silences are off the battlefield. So Joe should be able to now probably move forward. He's got an Oblivion Silence on the battlefield. He can use that to blow up everything. Jeff will have nothing left. Joe will have Worm tokens left with his Wormcoil engine. So I really do, assuming there's no game loss on the way here, which I would be surprised if there is, seems like a very fixable situation. I believe that Joe should be going on to win this game in a couple of turns.
Like the worst case scenario is it's what, fail to find off the stirrings. That's in a warning. You know what I mean? They're not gonna. I would be surprised if it was a game loss from here. So. Looks like the stirrings is resolving. So.
Yeah. And then Emrakul's added to the hand. Now I'll pass the turn back. Jeff will draw that forest. Top card of the deck, another forest. Gain some life off the coursers. And even if Jeff likes to make some inroads on Karn here, it doesn't matter. Karn's done its job.
Yep.
So the official ruling, looking at extra cards, it's a warning. They took the 2 extra cards that Joe looked at, though it felt like 5, and they shuffled them back in. Maybe he thought it was, I got it. He thought he was drawing dig through time.
Yeah.
Got it. Blue players. Unbelievable. and I believe Jeff is going to concede the game because he can't get by Oblivion Stone. He can't really get by much of anything. So Joe Lossett's going to win this match here over Jeff Hoogland, 2-0. Green Red Tron will take care of Kiki Cord. And what looks to be a pretty good matchup here for Joe. Jeff definitely has some good cards in the matchup, like Stony Silence and Fulminator Mage, but you just saw Joe overcome both of those.
Not enough pressure. I mean, that's what it comes down to. The only real pressure that Hoogland has in the matchup is threatening to go infinite, because attacking through the removal of the Oblivion Stones, the Karns, that's going to be really, really hard to do. Hoogland almost got off an infinite combo that game, and from a pretty low base. It was just Cord and a lot of stuff in play. Lossett